The funny thing is, I don't really think of myself as a Chelsea girl at all. I think of myself definitely as a country bumpkin. I would rather wear wellies than Jimmy Choos any day. If I give this show up, am I going to get employed or will my business survive? I spent lots of summers working in New York, and that's where my love for fashion came from.
What was your relationship like with your dad? Do you mind me asking?
I did feel like, oh my God, I can breathe again. The air is different and the sky is so big and you just feel everywhere. Was this story that I had been on a date with Prince Harry. And it was only because he was in the same nightclub. Oh, I don't think I'm ever going to have kids. I'm happy with my dog. She was like, no, you will want them. You will. And I was like, no, I won't. And perhaps the reason I wasn't thinking about being a mother was because I didn't want to bring a child into that life.
So how long were you a single mum for? Because I did that for 6 years and it was hard work.
I've just been to the pub with all my mates and they told me that you were on reality TV and you were... But then sometimes you'd be in a position where you were told information from them and then had to keep it for camera. And that's even harder because you look very like Gabby.
I know, because we look really similar.
Do.
I know, real doppelgangers.
Is that what I want?
Right.
Or do I perhaps want to get on a plane and get married on a beach in Thailand, which is where I was born? I think 23-year-old Cheska would say, don't give up. Because I very nearly did give up.
Many people dream of a glamorous life in London as a beautiful TV star, but today I'm talking to someone who had all of that and gave it up for a quieter life in the Devon countryside. I'm talking, of course, about Made in Chelsea's Cheska Hull, who has said that her time on the show left her with anxiety and depression. So, what's it really like on one of TV's top shows? And how does her life today compare to what she had? Has life away from the limelight cured her? And how has she transitioned from being part of the glamorous elite to simply one of us? I'm Jo Emerson, and this is the No Filter Zone. So, Cheska, welcome. I am going to dive straight in. You said that working on Made in Chelsea gave you anxiety and depression. Can you explain a bit more about that to me, please?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, Made in Chelsea was, I think, the catalyst for my anxiety. And I still have anxiety to this day.
Okay.
And looking back on it, I didn't before the show. And so for me, that is a clear indication of sort of when it started. And I think obviously the pressure of being on a reality TV show is going to make anyone kind of nervous and anxious. But I think the real reason for me feeling so anxious was the waiting period between filming something that was quite often very upsetting and difficult to film, and having this kind of time lapse of waiting for that to come out on air, and then waiting for a backlash on Instagram or Twitter, sort of people directly able to hurt you and to say terrible things. And it was constantly living in this anxious kind of space of, oh God, what are my family going to think? What are my friends going to think? You know, it was, even to this day, when I hear the Made in Chelsea theme tune, it makes me feel sick inside. Like it's the anxious feeling, yeah. Wow. And they still play that song sometimes. I can be in a supermarket or I remember even on holiday, I did a yoga class and they played the song and I was like, this is the most unrelaxing yoga class I've ever done. So yeah, it was a hard time.
How did the anxiety manifest itself in you? Because I work as a confidence coach, right? So I come across this a lot, and I've definitely had anxiety myself in the past, and I noticed that it's very different for different people. So for you, was it physical and mental and emotional? Like, how did it manifest?
For me, even now when I have anxiety, it's sort of a feeling inside that makes me feel sick. Like I feel sometimes like I am going to throw up and I feel like there's a knot in my tummy. Like, when you get a gut feeling that something's really wrong.
Yeah.
And I can wake up sometimes and have that feeling and I try and sit down and work out why I'm feeling that way and why am I stressed and and it's usually because I'm preempting something or I'm worrying about something happening. And with the show, when I was on it, that started because I would wake up knowing that I had to go to filming, and I just felt like I couldn't. And I would just, lie there in bed thinking, I've got to get up, I've got to get ready, I've got to get showered and en route to where we're filming, but I just couldn't. And, there were times where a producer had to come to my house because I just couldn't get out of bed. And I think that was a mixture of anxiety, but also depression as well. Because how I kind of think about depression is you feel so down that you can't even get out of bed, and you can't do the most normal human things, like go make yourself some breakfast or go have a shower, wash, clean, put makeup on. You can't do those things because you feel so low. And it was that mixture of depression and anxiety towards the end of filming that made me stop filming. I had to stop it, really, to the point where it would save my life if I stopped, because I could just not see out like properly. I couldn't see a way of living life properly and being happy again. And I was desperate to be happy again. So yeah.
Gosh, depression is, I think people forget this, that depression can be physical. Like, it really is like wading through treacle, unable to move, unable to love or laugh or connect, or, like you say, even drag yourself out of bed. And we always think that depression is just this mental thing, but it is very, very physical for a lot of people. I've had clients say to me that they feel like there are rocks inside them, their body. And their body's too heavy, or their head is too heavy for their neck.
That's a really interesting way of saying it about the rocks, because when I did finally get help towards the end of the show, and it was the production team on Main Chelsea could see I was suffering, and they said, look, go and see a therapist. We'll help you, but it'll be someone that's not connected to Channel 4. Because before, we always, every series, you had to see the show's therapist just to check you were able to film. And obviously in that situation, you never feel like telling the truth in case they go, hang on, they're not going to be in the next series. So in this situation, they said, go and see someone independent that we'll put you with, but that, isn't connected with us. And when I went and spoke to that lady, she explained to me what you just said, is that it's almost like I'm wearing a backpack. And in that backpack that I'm carrying around every day are all these different types of rocks. And they're weighing me down. And I need to kind of learn to open the backpack and take each one out. And I don't have to do it at once. It doesn't have to be in one day. But just at a time, try and see if I can take those rocks out and kind of relieve myself of these pressures and these worries and these anxieties, because life will be lighter.
Yeah.
And that essentially is what I ended up doing. It took a long time, and it took to moving county and giving up my life as it was and starting again. But essentially that's, my backpack was empty. Well, not empty, but a lot lighter when I did that.
Well, it's a manageable load now.
Yes.
We will come on to your new life, but if I can just stay with your life when you were on Made in Chelsea, it might sound like an obvious question, but what attracted you to that work, apart from the glamour, obviously? What attracted you to join the cast of Made in Chelsea?
So looking back...
How old were you?
I think I was about 22. I was the oldest cast member, though.
Wow, that's young, though.
Yeah, I was the granny of the cast at the time. But I was still very young, and I was working in public relations. I'd already done a few TV shows prior to that, so I had a little taste of it, and I'd enjoyed it.
What TV shows?
So I did a show in New York when I was out there doing a fashion course. I'd met a girl called Ali Hilfiger, who's Tommy Hilfiger's daughter, and she was filming a show for MTV.
Okay.
So she asked if I'd like to be on it as her British friend. And oh my God, British people are so cute. So I was like, this
what a gig.
British friend. I only did a couple of episodes of it. And then went straight back to England and went to uni. And then it came on T4, which was, a very popular program at the time. And they decided to call it Rich Girls, which was quite embarrassing because when we filmed it, there was no title. It was just a production, a working title of something like Girls in New York. And I had envisaged this Sex and the City type show. Anyway, I was at uni and it was called Rich Girls, which was quite embarrassing, because everyone at uni with me then thought I had all this money and everything. And then after that, I ended up doing a show, another one for MTV called My Super Sweet World Class, which was basically about me and my old flatmate Binky having a big party.
Binky, who was on Made in Chelsea,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, she is. So we did that, and that was great fun. But ultimately, I worked in public relations for drink brands and nightclubs and celebrities. So in my day-to-day life, I was organising for celebrities that were over in the UK to go into nightclubs and have free alcohol in exchange for getting a bit of press on them.
So like early influencers.
Yeah, exactly. It was like influencers without Instagram. It was the way we used to do it to promote these really cool nightclubs. So I worked with Leo DiCaprio, Mariah Carey, like
okay, we need to come on to them in a minute.
Yes. But all kinds of amazing celebrities. And I was the PR girl, so I wasn't living their life. I was helping to organise their life and working behind the scenes. And so when Made in Chelsea came along, and it was actually on the back of Binky and I filming the MTV show, one of the producers said to me, look, my next job after this is working on something called Chelsea Girls. Now it's called Made in Chelsea. And it's basically going to be the British hills, a bit like, the hills in America. So we're trying to recreate that in a very, quintessential British way in Chelsea. Would you be interested? And so Binky and I said yes. And we sort of went and did the pilot of that. But we also introduced our best friend, Ollie, who we adore, who is still my best friend. We introduced him to the producers as well. And Ollie then introduced his girlfriend. And it kind of grew like that. And there were a few other people they were talking to. But the main concept was that we all kind of knew each other.
Right. So it was very organic in that sense.
Very organic. Everyone knew of everyone. Some people had slept together. Some people had been to school together. But there were connections. And that's really what they were trying to build. Because they knew that if it's constructed reality, there needs to be some kind of link between people to have those conversations and to have that background. So yeah, I don't know if nowadays it's the same when they cast it. I think they're looking more for great characters rather than those connections.
Those genuine connections, yeah. So did you give up the day job? Did that become your full-time job?
I carried on the day job for as long as I could.
Okay.
And then I decided to set up my own PR agency, which I did alongside of being on the show with my best friend Sam. And we looked after a lot of venues on the King's Road. So it worked really well because I was on Made in Chelsea. I was PRing venues like Raffles, the Bluebird, both had these amazing Chelsea establishments, and working with brands to get those celebrities in, or my castmates. I mean, that was quite easy really, just saying, come on guys, come down
free beer over here.
Yeah, come down to Raffles, we're going to celebrate this brand. So yeah, we did that. I did that alongside the show for years, which was
But then of course,
fun.
Thinking about the anxiety and the depression, if your business relies on another job that's making you feel anxious, there's a whole load of anxiety just bound up in that, right? Because
massively.
one domino goes and...
Yeah, and there was a massive pressure working with nightclubs, obviously, as well, to be at work and then to be in the club as not only Cheska from Made in Chelsea, but also taken seriously as a PR girl. And that was also very hard, kind of having that respect. I think one of the anxieties for me was, if I give this show up, am I going to get employed, or will my business survive? Are people going to take me seriously? Because I was on reality TV, that used to really stress me out. And I was one of the only cast members that had a degree and had kind of, because I was a bit older, had already done all that. So I was really panicking about, if I let this go, even though I hate it and I'm depressed and I can't sleep, but I can't get out of bed and I can't do this, what's going to happen when I leave here? Where am I going to work? And again, one of the reasons I cut and ran back to Devon, best thing I ever did, to start again, kind of on my own terms.
Yeah, it's amazing. Before Made in Chelsea, obviously you were at school and university, and how would you have described yourself? What was, where did you live? How did you grow up? What was your life like as a kid and a teenager? Who were you?
Who was I? Well, the funny thing is, I don't really think of myself as a Chelsea girl at all. I think of myself definitely as a country bumpkin. I would rather wear wellies than Jimmy Choos any day. And, I'm more myself either by the sea or on the moors than I am walking the pavements of the King's Road.
And
So,
had your family had two homes? Had you had sort of a place in Devon and a place in London? Is that how you'd grown up?
my dad lived in New York and my mum lived in Devon. So I spent
got it.
lots of summers working in New York, and that's where my love for fashion came from. I really thought that I would be Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City. She was like
I can see that.
She was my idol, my ultimate everything. So I very much wanted that life. But then I realized in the holidays when I was home with my mum and I was sort of, swimming in the sea or with the dogs or riding horses, that kind of life was very much me as well. And I think I'm a Gemini. I think I battled with that two sides of me, kind of wanting that successful celebrity, glamorous life in London. And then also feeling very much, I want to be at home in Devon. I want to be relaxed, and that's where I'm happiest. So it was a battle within me.
So you talked about a backpack full of rocks, or we talked about a backpack full of rocks, and you were in London carrying this backpack, and then you're seeing a therapist, and you end up, very cleverly, in Devon. I'd love to know what the different rocks were that you had to remove in order to get from London to Devon.
Yeah, that was tough. I mean, I think one of the main things that happened to me when first filming in Chelsea was that I lost my dad, and it was really, really sad, and it was very sudden. It was through suicide. And the show at the time said, right, do you need time off? We were halfway through filming a series. I think it was series 2. And they were like, we don't want you to go because we kind of need you. But at the same time, we think you should grieve. You can take time off, take as long as you want. But we probably won't invite you back this series. It will be next series because it would be weird for you to suddenly walk back in. And they were very kind and there was a duty of care. But it was also said in a way that made me feel like if I go and take this time off, there's no way I'm ever going back. Like that's sort of the door will close because it's so hard to reintroduce someone. And there's always this fourth wall with reality TV where they never really admit that you're in Heat magazine or OK magazine or whatever. It's kind of like you're pretending you're real people and no one knows who you are. But obviously they do. And so if they weren't going to talk about my father's suicide, it would be odd for me to disappear and then come back. So I basically made the choice.
So you carried on?
Yeah, I carried on, completely parked it. I was like, no, I'm fine. You don't need to worry about me. I don't need to see anyone. I just want to carry on with work. And there was a part of me that did want to carry on with work and not deal with it. I really wanted to just not think about what was going on. And that was my massive mistake. That was my huge error because obviously in those situations, grief catches up with you. And it became kind of complex grief, I think my therapist said. And it built and built. And over time, it meant, that it was getting worse and worse. And other things that went on in my life that went wrong for me always brought it back to his death. So that was probably why the rucksack was so full of rocks.
Okay, so that was a big one. What was your relationship like with your dad? Do you mind me asking?
Well, my dad lived in New York, so I only really saw him sort of once a year.
Had he been around when you were little?
No, not really. Not really.
So it was always but a distant relationship.
It was a distant relationship. I saw him every summer in New York. We had a lot of fun together. He was a very charismatic, fun guy.
What was he like? Yeah, I was going to ask you.
He was crazy. He was he definitely had way too much fun, sort of drank quite a lot and partied quite a lot. He was more of a friend than a dad. I'd go over to New York, we'd have fun summers. He'd get me either a fun job or something, and he'd always take me to these cool bars. And but he was never a father figure. I had a father back home who brought me up and was amazing, and I loved very much. So my real father was very much more of a friend. I don't know if he knew how to be a father to me, so it was difficult. So I think when he died, it was sort of, I guess, it was more like losing a friend than a father.
Yeah, I see that.
Because I didn't have that relationship. But at the same time, whenever with suicide, it's so hard, isn't it, to kind of get your head around it.
It's the hardest grief to process.
So it was tricky trying to deal with that whilst being on the show. And I think The problem is I always wanted to be myself, but also I didn't want to look moody or sad or upset. So it was almost like, even though I'm not an actress, I've never done a drama class or anything, I felt like I was suddenly acting, being myself. I was pretending to be Cheska and I wasn't being the real Cheska. And that was...
And the mask gets very heavy, doesn't it?
Yeah, really heavy.
Really heavy.
Really hard. And it meant that I was not only lying to production about being fine, I was also lying to my own family and my own friends, you know, because the more you hide it, the harder it is to admit.
Well, then you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
How did you cope? What did you use to cope?
I think I was just out all the time.
Yeah.
Like I was just working so
Partying,
hard.
drinking, working.
Yeah, and my work was working with these nightclubs and celebrities and events. When I suffered, it was when I was alone at home, hence finding it hard to get out of bed in the morning.
Right.
Because that's when you think about everything, you know?
Well, you're with yourself. If there's nothing else going on to distract you, you're suddenly with yourself. And if yourself is holding on to unprocessed grief and pain, that's a painful place to be.
Yeah, exactly. It was
so
hard.
Like, let me sleep or let me get back out. I'm wondering, because obviously anxiety and depression, mental health issues can run in families. I'm wondering whether maybe what you're experiencing, maybe some of what your dad was experiencing, that maybe you've inherited some of his stuff. I mean, we'll never know, but these things, can you see that there's maybe a link between...
Definitely. I think at my lowest points in London, and I've definitely, these words have come out my mouth before, I've definitely said, this must be how my dad felt, you know? But I'm very lucky to have a very strong mother who, I think without me even telling her too much, realized something was very, very wrong. And I kind of had stopped communicating with her a lot because I was kind of just struggling and I just didn't know how to admit that. And she came up to London to see me. And then she said, I think we're in a place that I work, like a private members club where I worked. And she just said, right, I'm taking you home. You're coming back with me. And she'd only come up in her Mini Cooper, but she was like, pack as much as you can into the back of that trunk. We're going back to Devon. And I think she sort of said, just come for a week. Just come down for a week and see how you feel. Just don't work, don't do anything. So I think I just went down there with her and I messaged a few of my clients because I had this PR agency and said, look, I need a bit of time off. I'm still kind of working from home, but just, you know, I'm away. And a week then went to a month to 3 months. And then I sort of liquidated the PR agency and said, I'm starting again. That's it. Because I think I realized. So in a way, my mum actually saved me.
Your mum.
Which was great. But if she hadn't have done that, you know, God knows what would have happened.
So a typical day in London was get up, run a business, film Made in Chelsea, be very glamorous, in clubs all the time, drinking, pretending not to grieve, you know, and all of that. And then you moved to Devon. What age were you when you moved to Devon?
I think I was 29 because I remember having my 30th within the first year of moving back there.
So your early 20s, crazy London life. Your late 20s, moved to Devon. Describe a typical Devon day in your late 20s, because obviously it's different to now.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's going to be a stark contrast.
So when I first moved back to Devon, my typical day, I was working with my mum. So we had a family boutique, fashion boutique. So I started working with her, which was great. So and I moved back in with my parents, which was quite a big thing, really. So yeah, a typical day would be working at the boutique, afterwards going out on the water with friends to the pub, jump on a boat and go over to the Kingsbridge, the local town, and go for a pizza and a pint. Sunbathing on the beach, walking the dogs in the fields. Very, very different. I did feel like, oh my God, I can breathe again. And not just because there's no pollution in like the city, but just, you know, the air is different and the sky is so big and you just feel more at one with myself. Like I said before, I felt actually this is more me. I'm happier and I can breathe here. I don't feel claustrophobic. And also I was very aware that in London, everywhere I went, There were people that were watching the show at the time that either would comment or want a photo or want to talk to you. Or, sometimes there were paparazzi in places. And even getting a coffee from Costa, I felt judged sometimes by the person giving me the coffee because they'd give me a look or they'd say something. Whereas in Devon, even though I'm sure there were people watching it in Devon, people were much kind of kinder or not as interested, not as bothered. And if they did ever say anything, it was usually like, oh my God, you're that lady on the, really nice and kind of upbeat. And I felt I could be myself again. And I wasn't just Cheska Hull made in Chelsea. And I had lots of friends down there. And still to this day, my best friend hates reality TV, will not watch it, knows nothing about it, even though she was my best friend before I did it, just not interested. And I love that because I know that she knows the real me, and they love these people I grew up with down in Devon, knew me from, a young age and loved me for that. And it just felt like such a relief to be back to that.
God, I can imagine. What's it like having the paps follow you, take a photo of you buying a coffee and then splash it on some magazine about this is what you look like with no makeup on? I mean, what is that like?
It was horrible. There were a couple of incidences that were worse than the normal kind of pap situation. Because obviously if you go to an event, they're going to be there.
Yeah,
you expect that. And, you kind of sign up for that. But I remember this one day I was out with Ollie and we went down the King's Road just to grab, I think I was going to get a dress to wear from Ghost. And they kindly said, come in and choose one. So we were going, but it was a really hot day and I was in a sundress with flip-flops and I hair scrap, pulled back and not looking glam at all because I hadn't got time and I didn't really care. And I was walking along with my dog and I didn't even know I'd been papped. And then later on that night, obviously I had my hair done with this beautiful blue satin gown. I went to this amazing event in Mayfair and I'd had makeup professionally done and everything. And then the article came out the next day and it was like, look how awful she looks here and how glamorous she then looks. And I was sort of like, God, I didn't think I looked that. I mean, I wasn't massively glam when I was walking down the King's Road with flip-flops.
Why should you be? You're buying a coffee.
That's normal day-to-day life. And it was just kind of the comparison they made. And it was just horrible. So that was one incident. And then another one, which was really hard, which is just such an example of what the paps are like. I'd been out in a nightclub and I was on a date with a guy who'd actually been on Big Brother before, but we were just out having drinks. And I left the nightclub. And then the next day, in the Sun, the Mirror, everywhere, was this story that I had been on a date with Prince Harry. And it was only because he was in the same nightclub. And apparently we left 2 minutes apart from each other. Even though I left on the arm of another man, they just put this story together because they thought it was
going
fodder
to sell
and
newspapers.
Exactly, and clickbait and all that. But I think, unfortunately, because of that, then the paps ramped it up. And anywhere I went, only for the next couple of weeks, they were outside the apartment. They were, if I went for a loaf of bread, if I went to filming, they were in the bushes with the cameras because they was trying to see if the story was true. And obviously it wasn't. It was the most ridiculous story in the world. But it just shows the lengths that they will go to follow you. And that's when I realized how hard it is for real celebrities, like people that are really famous and have that every day, or the royals have that every single day. And
how
oh
terrifying.
My God, I could not live with that. Like,
no, terrifying.
Horrible. I only experienced it for a few days. But
we were talking before we started filming, weren't we, about body image stuff and how difficult it is, how Bridget Jones was deemed as fat, back, I mean, just, what does that stuff like, the Heat magazine, I think it was Heat, the magazine where you said that they showed you before makeup and after makeup. I mean, what does that do to your sense of womanhood, body image, self? What does that do to you?
It was so hard. And I feel so sorry for anyone that goes through that. Because as women growing up, we are always aware, aren't we, of our bodies and the way. And I think, that's human nature to an extent. I know with my stepdaughters, they worry about things and they're both the most gorgeous, tiny little things. And it's hard to even tell yourself that you're beautiful or you accept your body as it is. So when somebody else points out that you're not very thin or, you're fat. I mean, I had it in the media when I was on the show. And I think one of the worst things for me was when I was filming Made in Chelsea, and there's a scene where another cast member called me a effing fat turkey. And like, I just felt this person wasn't being very nice to me for quite a long time off camera anyway. But to say that on camera to a woman to another woman.
Oh, how shaming.
It was just so embarrassing and humiliating.
Yeah.
And I remember when it happened, I was so shocked that she'd actually called me fat on, being recorded doing it, that I tried to kind of get up because I just wanted to leave. When you just want to run, you're just so humiliated. There were 20 people around the table, and then the room was full of cameramen, producers, sound men, all of that going on. And I just thought, oh my God, I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out. And I tried to get up. And there was a producer under the table holding my legs down. And she was saying, no, fight back. And in a way, I get why she wanted to keep me there. She was like, it's your turn. It's, say what you want to say back. But I just wanted to get out the room, because that's when I'm saying about the anxiety. So that happens. Wow. And then you've got to wait 6 weeks for them. They're going to edit it, but 6 weeks for that to then be shown to the public. And then you've got to kind of receive all the either backlash or support from that. And it just carries on. And even to this day, they still use that clip on Instagram when they say the 10 best reality put downs or the worst scenes in Made in Chelsea or the nastiest things people, they use that and it keeps coming up time and time again. It's like, I'll never be rid of it. But, and the funny thing is, I was so tiny back then. Like, I look at myself then and now. I mean, I'm happy now and I'm happy in my body and I'm getting engaged and he loves me for my body. So, I'm fine with that. But when I look back and I think, well, I was only like a size 10 then.
Right.
And you called me a fat turkey. Like, what am I now? Like, do you know what I mean? It's silly, but those things do affect you.
They really affect you.
Yeah.
Gosh, so lots of rocks in that backpack. So in Devon, you're a mum now. You're a stepmom now.
I know.
You're the blended family thing. Where do we say? Let's start with becoming a mum. Talk me through when that happened, how that happened, what that's. I suppose who you are now that you're a mum, because it changes us, right?
It completely changes. I mean, it is the biggest and best job I've ever had. Mm-hmm. It's hard work though.
Yeah.
God. I mean, I remember a time when I said to my own mum, oh, I don't think I'm ever going to have kids. I'm happy with my dog. She was like, no, you will want them. You will. And I was like, no, I won't. And lo and behold, I think when I moved to Devon and I was hanging out with, local friends, people I'd grown up with, and people were sort of getting married and having children. Mm-hmm. And I was spending time with those tiny babies and kids. And I thought, actually, I quite like this. I felt like I'd parked that glamorous London crazy life. And perhaps the reason I wasn't thinking about being a mother was because I didn't want to bring a child into that life. And I didn't want to be a mum being that person because I knew how unhappy I was. Mm-hmm. And I think leaving there, going to Devon and being able to breathe again, I suddenly thought, actually, I would love to have a baby. But then anyway, I needed to find a man first. So.
Well, it helps. It's not absolutely necessary. I mean, there are ways
nowadays,
around it these days, but yes,
exactly. So I was dating someone for a couple of years and got pregnant and decided to have the baby. It wasn't like a planned thing, but we were over the moon. But unfortunately, me and Charlie's father didn't work out. Okay. We have a very good relationship now.
Brilliant.
And he sees Charlie regularly and Charlie adores him. But we're better off as friends, I think, for both of us. We're quite different people. So yeah, and I'm lucky that I've then met Damien doing the school run years later. So his son, Arthur, is the same age as Charlie and they used to be at school together. And I remember standing in line one day and looking down the line of parents waiting and I heard this big, ha, 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 quite a big man and with a big laugh. And I just saw him and I looked at him and I thought, that is exactly the kind of guy that I should have got with. At the time, I thought he was, married. And I thought, that's the kind of, someone really funny, handsome, cool, sexy. Like, I don't know, he caught my eye and I thought, why have I never been with a man like that, And then we just got to know each other through going to the kids' birthday parties and pickups. And we became friends. And we were friends for months and months and months. And then one day I decided to reopen Tinder, which I hadn't been on for a long time. And I reopened it, and obviously my profile was still there. And he popped up as a super like. So a super like, you can basically pay extra if you really want someone to see that you're on their radar kind of thing.
Okay.
So he popped up and I thought, oh my God, he actually likes me. And I hadn't realized that. So the rest is history. That kind of... So even though we didn't, essentially we knew each other before meeting on a dating app, I think the dating app helped him make that move, you know.
I met my husband on Tinder and 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And someone said to me only last week, what were you doing on Tinder? And I was like, well, what do you mean? What was I like? Tinder's where you go meet people. Like it's not like there's some range of types of people. And they were like, but who are you going to find on there? And I'm like, Tinder is like any app, it's how you use it.
Yeah.
And if you're like really clear on what you're looking for and you're like honest and good egg and kind, you'll attract a decent person on there. Like, I love Tinder. I love Tinder unicorn stories because they are few and far between. But I found a unicorn on Tinder and it sounds like you did too.
Yeah, I've been to quite a few weddings as well where,
from Tinder.
Even I haven't realised until I'm at the wedding when they've said, glad I swiped right, or that kind of thing. And you think, oh my God, they met either on Tinder or Plenty
Bumble,
of Fish or, one of them. And it's the way the world is nowadays.
It is the way the world is.
It doesn't mean you have to be on it to meet someone, but I definitely think if you really want to, like you said, you want to go out there and there are certain things you're looking for. I think with me as well, having a child and being a single mother.
Yeah, I was the same.
Easy to put that out there straight away and be really transparent about who you are at the beginning, rather than perhaps flirting with someone in a bar and then going, oh, are you okay that I've got a child? Or, sort of, it's just there, and you don't have to feel like you're apologizing for having it, because you're kind of proudly saying, this is who I am, this is my situation, like it or lump it, right?
Yeah.
Go left or go right, whatever you want. So
how long were you a single mum for? Because I did that for 6 years and it was hard work. How long were you single mumming for?
So 4 years really between Charlie's dad and Damien, my fiance. I did have a little relationship in between. And we're really good friends now. So, but yeah, sort of, I guess it was 4 years on and off. So,
But you had support from your mum and support from your ex.
Support from actually my mum and Charlie's dad, because Charlie's dad went abroad after we broke up. So he did see Charlie as much as he could. But the real support system that I had was Charlie's dad's mum and my mum. So both the nanas, the grandma and the nana, are just brilliant. And for Charlie growing up, they've been amazing. And even though obviously Charlie's dad and I, we never got married or anything, she is absolutely amazing as sort of a mother-in-law. So I'm very lucky.
She sounds great.
Yeah,
she really does.
Lovely.
And Damien came with not just one child, is that right?
Yeah, 3.
3, okay.
Yeah.
So you're a blended family of, let me get this right, 6.
There's 6 of us all together and 2 dogs.
And 2 dogs, okay, that's a lot.
It's a lot going on.
And do you all live in the same house, or are his kids kind of
It's half, yeah.
Right, okay.
It's really nice actually, because it's 50-50. So the girls come over on a Thursday and leave on either Saturday night or Sunday morning. And then we have Arthur Friday and Saturday, or sometimes Friday night, Saturday day. Kind of depends. But there's definitely always a day or two where there's 6 of us in the house, plus 2 dogs. And it's a lot of fun. It's noisy, and it afterwards, I think I drown in laundry and mess.
Yeah.
But, that's expected. I'm still getting my head around that side of things.
And the food bill is astronomical.
Oh, I know.
We
really
have 5
is.
kids between us, and it's it's astronomical, the food bill.
We're trying to be really clever and like work out ways to cook that, is affordable, but make sure everyone's really well fed.
Yeah.
Because you can be really silly about it and go and get, and also got to bear in mind, especially with teenage girls, they can be quite particular about what they eat.
They really can.
Especially one of my stepdaughters has a nut allergy, and that's tricky to sort of deal with. So yeah, it's funny because obviously the two little ones, all they want is pizza or chicken nuggets and chips, which is really unhealthy. Obviously loads of vegetables with that, but they're very much 6-year-old little boys that just want that kind of thing. Whereas the girls are actually great. They're a lot more healthier, and they often say, can we just have a really nice salad? Which then the little ones are not going to want. So it is tricky to make sure everyone's happy.
It is impossible, I would say. Yeah, just got to do our best. What do you think the difference, because I'm obviously a stepmom and a mum, what do you think the difference is for you from mothering to stepmothering?
That's quite a hard question, really. Well, the difference really for me when I was an independent single mum with Charlie is that, and I'm very, very close with him. He's my little baby boy, you know, and I adore him. But it was very different then because I was quite independent with work and what I was doing. And obviously now being a stepmom to all of the kids, and there's such different characters, each one of them, it can be quite hard managing that and managing everyone's sort of expectations of what we're going to do at the weekend, where we're going to go, what we're going to eat. You know, have they got their cool pieces of clothing and what they want to wear? So yeah, it's harder. Obviously, it's a lot harder having more, but it's sort of, it's a lot more kind of pressure to keep everyone happy with what they want, you know, especially with hormones flying around.
Yeah, definitely. What's Damien like as a stepdad to Charlie?
Oh, he's brilliant. He absolutely adores him. And yeah, Charlie adores. They were together last night, and they sent me, they FaceTimed me, and they're both watching a Marvel film. And
of course, standard.
And they're really good. And I was like, make sure he does his homework. And I don't think he did make sure he did his homework. But,
no, but when he's 6,
they have
really
a lot
matter?
of fun.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Damien's very much, he'll like buy them archery kits and spend all day doing archery together. Or, you know, he's quite into doing quite fun stuff. And actually, Damien and all his kids are very musical, and I'm not at all. It's a bit like the Von Trapp family, but I'm the missing link, I guess. But they all they play piano, drums, guitar, ukulele.
Wow.
They sing. They're just incredible like that. And quite often I'll come into the living room and they're all kind of jamming together. And Charlie's got very into playing the piano, and he's, for a 6-year-old, he's become quite good because he's learning from his older stepsister.
Yeah.
And so I love that side of it, because I know that if I hadn't met Damien, that's not a side of me I ever had. And Charlie would never have sort of been introduced to that musical world, or kind of they all express themselves very, very well like that. So every Saturday night, the two boys do us a show in their bedroom, and we get tickets and we go sit up there, and they sing Matilda or whatever other musical they've learned. And it's really sweet.
That is adorable. That is
funny.
Adorable. Tell me, if when you'd moved to Devon, you knew that this was what was coming, is this what you would have wanted? Is this what you would have asked for yourself?
Definitely.
That's
definitely. Yeah, I think when I was in London, I didn't ever think that I would be loved by anyone. For me. I think because I had a long-term boyfriend whilst I did Made in Chelsea that the viewers didn't know about, mainly because he didn't want to do the show. Okay. So I got pigeonholed as this Bridget Jones character that was so unlucky in love. So when that relationship with him ended, I kind of believed the show. Like the writers that had pigeonholed me as, you're going to be the Bridget Jones, I almost started to believe that they were right, and I was never going to find true love or a soulmate or someone that also got me as Cheska, not Cheska from Made in Chelsea. And so when I did meet Damien, he had no idea. He'd never seen Made in Chelsea. And the first couple of dates he went on, I didn't bring it up. And I kind of got the feeling he didn't know and was over the moon. But in my head, I was like, well, I'm going to have to tell him at some point. And then he went to the pub on a Wednesday and called me that night and went, I've just been to the pub with all my mates, and they told me that you were on reality TV, and then I've Googled you, and oh my God, what's going on? And I think he was quite shocked, but I think it actually happened in an organic, nice way that he found that out, because he'd already met me, gone on dates with me, given me a snog. So he obviously liked me as me. And I think that helped me get over that kind of, someone will like me for me and they won't care about that. And I think he's seen one episode of it and said, I never want to watch that rubbish again, which is great. And he knows about times that I found hard, like the fat turkey time and a few other things.
That hard. I find it really hard hearing that.
Yeah, I've told him about those things because it's important that he knows I'm the way I am and that these things happened. And I really care. His daughters, I worry about them. And sometimes I say to him, the reason I'm worried about them is because this happened to me back then and I would never want them to be in that situation. I mean, if anyone ever asked them to do a reality show, I would tell them to run for the hills.
That was a question I had for you. If any of your kids said they were going to go and do a reality show, what would you say? Would you be like, no, don't do it?
100% no. I think I'd lock them in a cage.
Would you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously there are so many different types of shows that you can do.
Yeah.
And if someone, for instance, Kitty is an amazing dancer. She's 16 and she's the most incredible dancer. If someone came to her and wanted to do a reality show about her dance, it would be a different thing.
Sure.
Because she is, incredibly skilled at that and that she would benefit from that. But if they were just wanting to do a show around her and her friends living in Totnes, then I'd be like, no way.
Because there's another reason for those shows, though, isn't there? Like that, it wouldn't be about showcasing someone's talent. Those shows exist for other reasons.
Yeah, you just never have. You never have any control. They decide exactly how they're going to portray you before you've even opened your mouth.
Yeah.
So sometimes whatever you say, they're going to edit it in the way that they have already planned to. Because as much as there was no script, as much as we didn't have to learn lines, they had planned each episode to a T. And you'd walk in and at the end of it, I knew what they were going to do because I'd walk into a scene like us talking and there'd be red tape on the floor at a different angle. And I'd think, well, someone's going to walk in and stand on that because that's their marker. Or they'd reposition cameras and they'd bring a new camera in at a different angle. And I'd know someone would stand there so that camera would get their face. Okay. And so that kind of ruined the element of surprise for them because I kind of would know what was going to happen. But, as much as it was reality, it was kind of living reality on speed because things were happening that wouldn't perhaps happen in normal life. And that's because they had written exactly how it would go.
So you guys were told to create beef, essentially, to create fuss and upset and drama.
And sometimes we would know something that had happened and we'd be told, save it for camera. It's like how they would say it, right? Because they spoke to us on the phone all the time and it'd be like, right, this has happened, save it for camera. We don't want you telling them. So even if I lived with Binky or Ollie and I'd know something, it would be terrible to try and, you're lying and keeping in the secret so you can reveal it to them on camera, knowing they're going to be devastated. And I found that very hard. And again, anxiety, just crept in. But then sometimes you'd be in a position where you were told information from them and then had to keep it for camera. And that's even harder because, for instance, there was a time when Binky, bless her, had been cheated on so badly by her boyfriend. And I didn't know this information, but a producer gave me this information and the facts and told me, who, where, how, everything. Wow. And then I had to deliver this to her in a nightclub. And I really didn't want to because I knew our friendship was kind of teetering on the rocks at the time. I knew that she would blame the messenger. She would definitely shoot me because she just would protect herself and her relationship. And I rather would not have known about it. Yeah. But then once I'd been given the information, I didn't have a choice. And you sign that contract and you have to, go through with it. But if it had been my choice, knowing that information, and I did say to them, why don't we do this tomorrow in her bedroom or in like a nice cafe and I can really talk to her. We're in a nightclub. Everyone's had a shot of tequila. It's not going to go well. But that's not what they want because that doesn't make, that makes good TV. Being in a nightclub and getting angry and everyone being
Storming
a little bit drunk.
Yeah.
So,
gosh, I can see that's really hard. Talk to me about work today because you moved to Devon and worked for your mum.
Yeah.
Are you still doing that? Tell me about your work life today.
Yeah, I had a change in career, but I've actually just gone back to what I used to do, which is public relations.
Uh-huh.
I think when Charlie got to about 4, I realized that I was really missing the PR side of my life. But I knew that I didn't want to be in London and I didn't want to be working with nightclubs again and doing that type of PR. So I got in touch with a local PR firm, and my mum actually knew Hayley, the owner, and they specialize in food and drink public relations. So I got in touch with them and now I freelance for them. So I do PR for loads of amazing food and drink brands. A lot are in Devon, but then there are some international brands we work with as well. And one of the things that I have sort of started doing a lot of is working with influencers, but on the other side of the coin. So I do a lot of that type of work myself, but I also get aligned brands with the right influencers to work with. And I think it really works having had the background I've had, because I understand, what the brand wants and how the influencer can deliver that, and also how to make it authentic and real, and the contract side of things and all of that. I've recently been doing a few kind of lectures on it and talks to people and going to companies explaining why they should work with influencers. Because at the moment, like just then, I got on the train to come up here to do this. And literally, there is nobody on the train reading a newspaper or magazine. They are all scrolling through their phones.
Everyone is,
And that's how they're buying products, and that's how they're knowing about brands, and that's how the world is working. So I think it's an important part of PR now, the influencer world.
It's a massive, massive part. And who are you? Who do you work with personally?
Which brands?
Yeah.
So I work with brands like Salcombe Gin, Hattier's Rum, Jing Tea. It's like delicious tea. I'll have to send you some.
I'd love some.
And then I work with an amazing brand called Planet Warrior, and it's swimwear and activewear made from recycled plastic bottles. It's really, really cool. Amazing, colourful prints.
Gosh. Okay. I need to
and
look
then
at
an interior design outlet, which you would love as well, which is based in Devon. And they have beautiful things all from Bali and Singapore.
Wow.
So brands that I love.
So all the parts of you have kind of come to home to roost in Devon.
Definitely.
How lovely. Now, you did mention an engagement, and there's a very nice ring on your finger. Talk to me about the engagement and the wedding.
So the engagement happened last year on my birthday. And Damien whisked me off to where we had our first date for lunch.
Special.
And we went there and had lunch. And then after lunch, he said, let's go sit on the pontoon. So it's this place called Dittersham, which is on the water in Devon. And there's a lovely pub there and a restaurant, and then this long, long pontoon. So we went and sat on the pontoon, and he sort of said, where did we sit on our first date? And I said, I think it was here. So I went to sit down, and he went, no, don't sit down. And then proposed. He went down on one knee and proposed. And it was really romantic. That was kind of the engagement. The next day, I had already planned to have a birthday party. So I had lots of people coming over to the house for my birthday. And it was great because they got there, and then we sort of went, we're engaged, and announced it. And the day following that, I was up in London doing BBC Radio London with my friend Gabby Roslin, and ended up sort of announcing it to everyone via radio. It wasn't planned. I was there to talk about one of my brands that I work with.
Yeah.
And she had seen the ring, and her producer had spoken to me before I went in. So she just announced it on the radio.
She's amazing.
She is fab. She's so lovely.
I used to get stopped in the street in my 20s and asked for her autograph.
You look very like Gabby.
I know, because we look really similar.
Do.
I know, it's real doppelgangers. And I have to confess to her that I did once sign a piece of paper. Yes, this day where I'd had about 4 people come up to me and say, Gabby. And towards the end of it, I was so sick of it that I just signed Gabby Roslin. So there's someone out there. Sorry, Gabby. There's someone out there.
Yeah, you do look really like her. Now I can see it. Yeah.
And much more when we were both a lot younger, like 20, 30 years ago. Hilarious. Anyway.
So lovely.
Yeah. She seems
out
great.
Of everyone I met, and obviously doing the show, I met so many celebrities and people, and I've worked with celebrities before that as well. But she is probably one of my most favourite people in the world.
Yeah,
so kind.
She's a good egg. She comes across as a good egg. Well, maybe I'll actually meet her one day, and there'll be a photo of the two of us together.
Definitely.
Like sisters separated at birth. So the wedding.
So we did have loads of plans for the wedding. And then, in all honesty, my anxiety came back.
Right.
And I hadn't had anxiety for quite some time because I was engaged and I was super happy, and we started planning it. And it was a few things, really. A friend of mine died last year when we were sort of in the midst of planning it. And that, I think, my mental health plummeted again a little bit.
Well, it would have
because
triggered stuff around your dad and
It
everything,
did.
wouldn't it? Yeah, of course.
Completely triggered stuff around my dad. And I just was waking up every morning feeling this feeling I get when I get bad anxiety of sort of I'm going to be sick and stressed and just too much going on. And I felt that the best thing to do was to get that rucksack off and take a rock out. And unfortunately, the rock I took out was the wedding.
I know a big wedding is a big rock. I would agree.
It is. And we are still going to get married. We're dying to get married. We talk about it all the time. We're very much in love. So that's not the problem.
I can see that.
It just felt like with work and everything else going on and me kind of getting my head over my friend dying and all of that situation, it was like, okay, if I'm feeling this stressed, let's park that for now and focus on everything else. And then when I'm feeling like the time is right, bring that back in. And it's meant that we've actually had time for the kids to learn to live together because we'd only just moved in when he proposed. And everything then went straight on the wedding and not actually how are the kids doing.
And blending a family.
And the family literally blending together and learning to be together. So it's been quite nice to have that opportunity to do that. And it's also meant that originally we're planning this huge wedding with 300 people and the possibility of either OK and Hello magazine involved and all that jazz. And actually I then have stepped back and gone, is that what I want?
Right.
Or do I perhaps want to get on a plane and get married on a beach in Thailand, which is where I was born? Like, do I want to do something that's just with close friends and family? Or we're still not sure.
That's what we did. I had, when I was going for my second marriage, I kind of just had, this standard big wedding thing in my head. And then due to someone in my family being unwell, I just thought, actually, no, I just want something small. So we just had a small city wedding. I say small, there were 40 guests, but not 200. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's nice.
But just like went to the registry office, went to the Ivy, had lunch with everyone, went on a honeymoon. And we said actually to everyone else, we'll have a big party in the garden in the summer, next summer. And of course, COVID hit. So that was the end of that. And quite frankly, we've been married far too long now. People don't care anymore. But I think it's really important to think about the wedding you want for the stage of life you're at.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there is no one size
fits
all. And it's certainly not worth your mental health over.
I felt like I was just trying to please everyone else and brands that I was working with. And then I kept thinking, oh, they're going to want photos on the day of this and Instagram and that. And I actually just want to enjoy the day.
Right.
And also, Damien's been married before. And as much as he always says, oh, but it's your day because I've done it before. I'm like, no, I want it to be our day. I want it to be something special for us and our kids and our close friends and family. And I mean, we're not 100% saying no to the bigger option. And the venue we found was insane. And I'd still, that in the back of my mind, it's still an option. I've just got to make sure that I'm doing this in the right way. Because I've rushed into things before in the past, like television. And I don't want to ever feel like I don't have control over something. Because when I don't have control, that's when I get very anxious and upset. And I don't mean control in a horrible controlling way. Just, I need to know that I'm doing what's right for me, Charlie, and the kids and Damien,
Which is how you manage your mental health today.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. We're coming towards the end of our time together. If you could time travel back to 23-year-old Cheska with the turkey comment, however old you were then, what would you say to her? From now being 38, what would you time travel back 15 years? What would you say to her?
Oh gosh, that's a really tough one. But I would probably tell her to keep staying strong because things are going to get better, and to not dwell so much on, and it's hard to say this because we all do it, but worrying what the people think, because there are people out there that will just love me for me, or will love you, Cheska, for you, and that it's not the end of the world. Because at the time, I think I thought literally, this is the end of the world. And I felt that comment would follow me. And it did in a way, but I've learned now to shut it out and to almost laugh about it in a way and go, oh, it's so ridiculous. And that's probably what I'd say to my stepdaughters as well. I'd probably say, oh, don't worry, it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous, and brush it off. But I just try and stay strong.
Well, the haters are going to hate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now if we could bring her forwards 15 years, if 23-year-old you could come and sit here, what would she say to you? What would she want from you? What would she say?
I think 23-year-old Cheska would say, don't give up. Because I very nearly did give up in a very low time. And I think 23-year-old Cheska would really try to make me see that there are amazing things to come, Because at that age, I never thought that I would find anyone, love anyone, have a child with anyone. And that little boy is everything to me. And he has changed my perception of love and what I'm capable of to give love, At the time, I had a Pomeranian, I still have her, and that was all my love. But I didn't think that I was capable of any more than that. Letting my barriers down and being able to love is very important.
What a place to end, on vulnerability and love.
I know, I feel quite emotional now.
It's been beautiful talking to you. What a journey you've been on. And you're going to be inspiring so many people to, I think just for someone who's, been as kind of glamorous and successful in that kind of very typical way as you have been, to be honest about the mental health struggles is so important. And look at you now, all loved up, living the good life.
Finally.
It's been lovely to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you.
If you want to hear from more amazing women like Cheska, then don't forget to like, comment and subscribe so that our channel can grow and we can bring you more high quality guests with their incredible stories. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.